So what I'm going to do is write down like your top 5 snacks or behaviors that you go to when you want to feel comforted. All right. So just give me your 5, because everyone's got like a gazillion,
like
right?
actual food.
It could be specific food, or it could be just a behavior, like whatever your things are that you feel like, oh, that's making this weight stick a little bit. Like this is what's keeping me from doing something more productive, right? That I should be doing, like whatever that is. Like just give me 5 of your things, and that's what I'll look at. Oh, and Kate's here. There we go. Here we go.
I have lack of motivation. I sit down with food like it's an event,
Hey,
not just feed myself.
Hey, all right. So you sit down with food. Okay, we're just talking about Andre's top 5 like behaviors that she goes to for self-soothing. Mm-hmm. Like that we're just gonna kind of look at that stuff, right? So you sit down to food like it's an event. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like you really look forward to it, like it's a huge deal. What does that mean?
No, I don't look forward to it. It's just entertainment and passes time, particularly in the evening. It doesn't even matter how hungry I am or aren't. It's like my internet surfing for shopping deals, and I eat. And I have, like, it's changed a lot once I hit 50. Like, I feel like it's just a nightly routine of a, like, lower energy, lack of motivation. And I wouldn't even say I enjoy the food necessarily. It's just, it's time to eat. I'm meant to eat. So
I'm supposed to eat. It's a habit. This is just what I do.
Yeah. It's really getting to a wouldn't say breaking point, but I'm very bored of it and tired of it. And it's not, I've noticed, like, even if I get a great shopping deal, I don't care. Like, they're like, do I sit down, like, back when we first met, God, well, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Then I would think I was in a different stage then. I think food was like I got a rush from eating whatever I was eating. Like I had cravings and that. I don't have maybe it's the quality of the food I eat, because I do eat a lot higher quality of food now than then. But I don't get the kind of, ooh, yum, that was great. I used to back then.
Okay. So you don't really get the same satisfaction anymore from the food.
No, but I still do the behavior.
So the behavior's there, but satisfaction isn't. Like that's even worse.
So should it not be super easy to actually just don't do it, because it's not even that
pleasurable, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. And I could pick, like, my brain could go, what could be the most, what can you think of that's really you really think is going to give you some kind of satisfaction? And it's just all right.
So not even getting the joy that you used to from this behavior. Okay.
No, but I know that, and I should be grateful that that's probably because I don't eat highly processed, crappy sugars.
Yeah.
Now I'll eat a cleaner version of the food. So I think that's, well, I actually don't know. Maybe it's not. That's my assumption, that that's not driving the cravings like it used to when I would eat Cheetos.
Yeah. Okay.
As you probably recall.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't feel like you're getting the same rush. You are eating healthier versions of things, but you're still kind of just doing this behavior every night because it's just what you do at this point, and it's just out of habit.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, it's like entertainment. Feels time.
Okay. And would you say you're like happy with where your body's at right now, or would you say you are still trying to make improvements as far as, maybe body fat percentage or something? Like, are you trying to really work on something, or are you good?
I have a COVID-15 on.
A COVID-15? Okay. You got off easy.
Yeah.
Good for
yeah,
you.
you did.
Okay. Right? Yeah. Okay. So you got a little bit of extra weight that you're still hanging on to, and you have some of these habitual behaviors that probably aren't helping.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we'll look at like habitual stuff that's what you do at night. Okay. So Kate is here. So hello, Kate. So Kate
Hello.
is also in the fitness and wellness industry. Andre was one of my clients back in LA. Of course, we've been chatting for quite some time. So so I'm so glad you guys are here. So Andre is going to be in and out. She has some stuff to do. So
Okay.
I'll try.
I may mute. I can stay, but I'll probably mute.
Mute is a great idea. Yeah,
not
if you're doing other
torturing
stuff,
all
just
of you.
mute it away. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kate, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Yeah. So you and I have chatted about things before. So
Yes,
you
we
know,
have.
yes.
we have.
And there's always
Um,
stuff to uncover, you know. So besides the things that we've already talked about, you know, today we're just going to kind of look at, you know, 5 behaviors that we're trying to kind of get awareness of, like, these behaviors are probably holding me back. I think we all kind of have an idea of some stuff that we do that is holding us back in some way, or at least, you know, just some self-soothing thing that you think like, oh, I could probably choose a better strategy, but this is something I've been doing for a while. So that's all we're examining, you know. So why don't you share like some of those self-soothing things that you would like to take a look at, and we could dig a little deeper.
Okay, so for me, as in no, sugar's my drug of choice. I could deal without the alcohol. I could deal without the other stuff. And I use it more. I used to be kind of more mindless with when I'd eat, but now it's like the stress or the emotion comfort.
Okay.
And so that's the piece that I know, you know, and then it's the self-sabotage. I'm doing really good and I'm like, oh, I can just do a little bit of it, and then it goes off the rails. And then it's the, okay, I got to get it out of my house, so I need to eat it to get it out of my house, as opposed to just like throwing it in the trash.
Yeah.
You know, which would be
Oh
much
yes,
better.
I concur with that one.
Yeah, or not even bringing
It's
it
like nearly you will. For me, I will eat more than I even wanted just for it to be gone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it'd be even better if I didn't even bring it in the house, but I struggle because I have
Exactly.
teenagers in the house who it makes its way in here however and whenever, and I'm trying really hard not to put my food issues on them, you know, so I don't
Yeah.
try to be so crazy with them, because I don't
Yeah.
want to create, as I've gone and explored through all of my childhood and how I've gone and why I have the reasons I have, and be able to pinpoint that, I am trying to avoid doing that to them. With also setting a good example. So I would love to have healthy strategies for them to see and recognize. I too have 2 fur babies who are running around outside here with me right now. So you may hear them as I'm hearing them fighting next to me. But so that's the thing, where just to more tackle, and then not to beat myself up for it. Like that's it. I think I beat myself up so much for it, instead of which then is like that spiral where I'll beat myself up for it, so then I feel bad, so then I continue to do it, as opposed to like allowing, okay, so I did it, allow myself some grace and like move on. Like that's where I want to get to the point. I'd love to get to the point where that's not what I choose, but I can't say 110% that that's never going to happen. So then to be able just to allow myself the, hey, okay, not a big deal, just keep going, as opposed to just that hamster wheel of the same behaviors going and going. Because life's not, I mean, life's not, the stress of life is not going to go away. I've been trying to do a lot more stress reducing strategies, and so I decided to do my stress management certification right now, so that I have to do it for myself. That's what I chose to do for my continuing ed credits. More to just like force myself into those behaviors and create those habits, but I still find myself. And the thing is, I love to bake. I love to bake. I love to smell it. I love to, and I could bake and like give it away, But if I have no one to give it away from and it's here, then that's what I'm like, oh, because it's just, and that's one of my creative edges is like creating and making and doing. So I love to, and I love to cook too. I mean, like I love to like put a recipe together and like have that piece, but it's just the smell and, well, and you and I have talked about the baking and why baking does bring back like good, happy things to me. So it's probably why I love it.
Sure.
It's just to not like go crazy with it.
Yeah.
Then after it's there. So
yeah. I mean, the first part of this whole formula is to first look at what we do, right? Like the why kind of has to come after. We just have to look at what we're doing. So you've uncovered a few things, right? Like the sugar in the house, that seems to be really difficult, right? Like you'll eat it. You've also got a thing where you can't throw stuff away, right? That's a totally different thing, right? You've got the positive associations with what baked goods mean to you, which typically is a sugar thing still means to you, right? So the process, you've also got the smell. So you have a lot of senses wrapped up in this, right? Like you have a lot of things and it takes a bit to uncover all the stuff, right? So you're getting your awareness. It's awesome, right? But they are all not the same issue, right? These are different things. And I think recognizing that is another really important step. So, okay, what do I do? What are these things that I do? They're not all just one. It's not all just wrapped up in sugar. It's not just that, right? It's emotional stuff from before, and it's making you feel a certain way. It's giving you different things. And of course, once you have done a self-soothing behavior, if you've done it a bunch of times, you've got lots of different associations with that behavior now. So it takes a little bit of, peeling the onion to get in there and see, because once you kind of neutralize one habit and one aspect of that habit, there's still more. And that's why healing is really like a practice. It's a journey. It's not something you're like, I'm all healed now, that doesn't happen. We'll be triggered forever for things. And it's just a matter of being able to respond in a more empowered way, right? So looking at that stuff is really the first step. And it's amazing that you're already looking into stress management. Like it's really fantastic to do. And one of the things that I realized, because I was, fellow sugar person, right? So sugar, I think, is just, it's such an easy thing to relate to because it's in everything. Right? So like so many people have that, right? And even if you're doing healthier versions of stuff, even protein breaks down in glucogenesis, right? Like your liver breaks things up to make it glucose, just like sugar is like instant glucose, but everything breaks down into that. So we will still have reactions to things that break down into it, even if it's not like this pure sugar that's injected into my veins at the moment, right? So we could still, and Andre, this is speaking to you really, it's like, even though you're having a healthier version of something, it's still kind of giving you that hit of comfort that you associated with the, like, the more intense dose of what you were getting. It's still kind of the same. So just having the awareness of like what's happening with what we're choosing, I think is a big part of that, So, okay, so you've got a bunch of stuff wrapped up in that, Kate. And, besides the comfort that you're getting from baking and from sugar itself, just the physical reaction to that, let's look at what other behaviors are kind of wrapped around that, So that was kind of one, but really broken into 5 parts. Right. So is there anything else, or do you feel like, what, if I could get a handle on this, I'd be golden?
No, because I feel like, no, I mean, like I need to move more in my life. But I think a lot of that is in the stress reduction piece. Like I know that.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you know me, like I would love to do that. If I could do that all day long, I would do it. But
Yeah.
it's, and part of it is me carving out the time and what I call my selfish time, which is really self-love time. I don't mean it in a negative way when I say that, but like just saying, hey, no, you don't need me right now. Like I don't have babies anymore. You guys can all handle this. I need this for me. And so I'm working on that piece because I think that I get so frantic and like deflecting and doing everything else instead of taking that time for me. Carving out my workout time, carving out a meditation time, carving out a time where like I don't want to talk to anyone and I just want to do what I want to do for whatever it is during that half an hour period of time, you know, not having to take care of the dogs, not having to. So I think some of that not taking that time also then exacerbates when those food behaviors come up because I haven't had that time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think though, before you start, you know, judging what you should be doing, let's look at what you are doing, right? Let's look at that first, right? Before judging like, oh, I should be, you know, meditating and I'm not, right? So let's look at what you are doing, you know, because time management, yes, it's an absolutely huge thing. So this whole process, and I got my book today, which I was very excited. Like I finally got the
mine comes Monday. I know I read, but I did both. I did that and the Kindle so that I could, but I read the Kindle in like not even like a whole night. It was like, I was just like, going through it.
It's such a quick read. And that was my like goal. Awesome. I'm like, I just want, here's the stuff, you know, no fluff, like, let's get to it. And, you know, when I look at this, it's the, you know, the awareness of what we are doing. Right now, what we should be doing, it's what we're actually doing. Because, okay, you could time management yourself, you know, left and right and do a chart and whatever, but it doesn't matter if we're not examining what we're already doing instead of the thing that you'd rather be doing. Right. So let's look at what's happening, you know? So that's what I mean. Let's look at those other behaviors, right? So these are all self-soothing behaviors. And you haven't chosen the other strategies that you'd like to do, you're choosing something else, right? So besides, you know, the baking, what else are the behaviors that we're doing that we can examine, right? Is it social media scrolling? Is it watching TV? Is it, you know, like, what is it for you?
For me, it's, it was for a long time social media. And then I've tried to pull back because I realized the time sucker that it was.
Yeah.
And then the craziness of like, oh, the comparison craziness to it that needs to go. I just started this year. I work with younger kids in the last couple of years. I've been working with older kids. So I've been working with younger kids and I've been spending too much time because I love it. But spending too much time planning and preparing and doing where like, then I get in there and I realize I've done way too much for the short amount of time that I have with these little babies that I need to scale it back. So I know like I've thrown myself really into that and I've enjoyed that bit of it, but then there's not time for other stuff. So, so it's scaling that back. And that's basically kind of like it. I mean, like, but then there's also like not a lot of motivation. So sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, I'm not motivated to do that. Or, oh, I'm just, you know, like, I think I just get exhausted about thinking about doing some of that other. So I'm just like mentally tired to.
I get that completely. So when you're mentally tired and you're not motivated, what are you doing? Are you sitting in bed? Are you on the couch? Like, where are you?
On the couch or on social media. Every once in a while, I will like go out and take the dogs for a walk to be like, okay, if I get out and I move and I do that, like then, you know, you do get that burst and like that fresh air and the vitamin D and everything. No, then what I'll do is I'll get emotionally or like physically just mentally tired and I'll either like sit upstairs and like I've been rewatching Schitt's Creek. So I know, it's so good. I mean, I could like live with David for my entire life. And it puts me in a really good mood. So like that's why I've been watching it, because it does make me happy. But like I'll sit and I'll have the iPad while I'm like laminating or cutting things out. Like that's where I've kind of, and then maybe that's why I've been doing so much with the school stuff, is it's just like my way to like kind of zone out a little bit when I'm emotionally or mentally tired and not motivated to do anything else.
Yeah. But you see what I'm getting at? I'm trying to
Yeah.
look at the actual environment. Where are you? I
What
want
I'm doing.
specifics. Like, are you in
Yeah.
the bed? Are you on the couch?
No,
Are you in
so
your
where I
pajamas?
am-
Like
where
give
I
me
am
all the
sometimes-
stuff.
Yeah. Like the social media scroll, sometimes I'll be sitting out here, like out in our back.
Mhm.
But lots of times I'm more like in the kitchen, like our kitchen and our living room are like open together. So I'm in a chair there, or I'm up in like what's our laundry room / my like school office, sitting in the chair there. So I'm either in
Right.
like this room, or I mean, it's not like a closet laundry room. It's a little bit bigger because we got this whole counter and I have like a desk area in there, but I'm either there or I'm sitting like in a couch here. I'm not like in my bedroom. I really don't go up there until it's like time to go to bed.
Okay.
But so those are usually the two places, and every once in a while outside, sitting outside. I try to do the outside at least, because then the dogs don't bug me and they're not destroying things in the house and they're out here and chasing things instead. But those are kind of my places where if I hole up, that's where I am.
Okay. All right. So, really recognizing your environment and what you're doing, I think matters.
Mhm.
Like, because going into a certain room gives you a cue as to what you're going to be doing in that room.
Mhm.
Right. So what would you say could be, a place or, a physical cue for you to kind of jog you in ooh, I'd rather be doing this. I could be doing this other strategy. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a physical cue. It's a reminder. And for a lot of people, I think a really great physical cue is to set up alarms in the phone. Right? It's a boom, buzz, vibration. And oh, yeah, I should be drinking water. Yeah, I haven't had enough water. What, like those physical things really do help. Right? So look at just what you've been doing and where you're doing it, right? And looking at the behavior associated with your environment, that's a helpful thing, just to uncover, like, what am I doing? Where am I doing it? How am I remembering what I should be doing in that moment? What are those things? Right? So, okay. So let's look at, the specifics of something that you mentioned, like baking, right? So you love to bake, you like to do stuff in the kitchen. How often is that happening? And what kind of duration is that when you do it?
It's been happening less frequently than prior.
Okay.
Even like the food cooking and stuff. Like the other night I had where we didn't have anything like after work and after school. And so I did go and I baked, because I baked cookies for our neighbor next door. He had like a documentary on something that he did come out. And so he's an older guy. And so I brought it over there for him because I know he loves my chocolate chip cookies. So I did that. But of course there's some here. Of course, because my family loves them too.
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah,
seriously.
exactly. So I was like, okay. So I did that, the cooking and the food prep, and that's the thing which I haven't been doing as much, and I love to do it. Like I love to get it together and to plan it and to do. I usually will do that like once or twice a week, pretty much. Like when I do dinners at night, it's kind of haphazard, and I don't have my good eater at home anymore who would eat anything and everything and never complain about what I make. So I'm like, could you please come home soon?
I wish I had one of those.
I know. Well, one of 4 other people who I cook for, I'm like, please, please, please. So it like, and I think some of it is I just find it frustrating because the other 2 are not as easy to just prepare for. So I think that mentally exhausts me too, to think like, okay, like Grace will eat no protein, a handful of vegetable, like she is like a random eater. And so like it's more exhausting for me to come up with what they're all going to eat, that I'm like, I'd rather just cook for myself.
Yeah.
But I can't do that because I have these 3 other people.
Yeah. You have to feed the baby birds.
I have to actually take care of my children,
Right.
but I mean, that they do, these 2 at least are like, can fend for themselves, but then it drives me crazy with like what they get to fend for
Yeah.
themselves. So it's like the double-edged sword. So that has been, and just with like schedules at night, it's been harder to spend that time. So I think some of that then drives the food then, because like I don't get hungry at night. I'm more of like a front load eater, where it's like the morning, or like when I get home from, like I just work in the mornings at school. So when I get home in that like 2 to 5 o'clock time, like, and not even 2 to 5, like 2 to 3:30 almost even. And then like at dinner time, I don't really necessarily, I always look at dinner for like, what's my lunch the next day. So but it's like, I'm so exhausted by the time I get home from work, like just mentally exhausted, that I don't want to come home and like get in the kitchen and start preparing and cooking. So it's kind of like where the good food could come from, as opposed to the quick, fast, not the greatest or thrown together meals that aren't really necessarily appealing, but I'm like, okay, we're going to eat them. That's kind of how that has shifted too.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, because you really brought up a great point. When you come home, you're exhausted, right? Now, would you say that the exhaustion could stem from something other than physically being exhausted?
Oh yeah, it's the mental exhaustion of thinking of that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not necessarily, it's definitely the mental exhaustion than the physical, because I love being with those kids and my day goes by so fast. I mean, they're kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders. Like I love that.
Yeah.
But it's the mental exhaustion of then planning all that others, like thinking about everything else.
Yeah.
That's what it is, more mental than physical.
And that's what I would assume, right? So I would assume at the end of the day, when most of us are done with work, we are more mentally exhausted than physical. I would assume that's the case, right? So now the question becomes, how emotionally exhausted are we, right? Because I distinguish mental and emotional exhaustion as 2 separate things. So when I look at emotional exhaustion, I want to know, like, how much of the day has been you either not being heard, or not feeling seen, or not being acknowledged, right? Not getting some kind of support that some part of you needs, right? Would that apply to you?
Yes, I could see it. And then the other emotional exhaustion piece is thinking of taking care of everyone else. Like my dad and my parents with my dad's dementia, my son who's in San Diego with mono, my like husband who work and financial things are really awful right now. Like that's, I think, more of the emotional mental exhaustion. And that's not even me thinking about taking care of myself exhaustion. It's that piece where I go out to all the webs outside instead of here. And that's where I think I'm too emotionally and mentally exhausted to then think about taking care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. So this is what
All
I
of that
would.
for me too, Zen.
What was that?
All of that for me too.
That's for you
I
too.
never actually thought of that until you just asked the question. Yeah, I'm pretty invisible in my day, appeasing other people.
Appeasing other people. And I would really think, like, I think this happens more to women than men. I think we're really conditioned to be the good girl, to help everybody else before us, because that's what good girls do, right? And I would say that that piece of this is a much bigger piece than most people realize, right? So if you are feeling like you're doing everything for everyone else, you got to take care of everyone else first before you take care of yourself. Otherwise, you're selfish, right? Otherwise, you're not doing a good job being a good person, you know? That is exhausting. And that means that part of you is not getting the love and support that you need, and probably hasn't for a very long time. And I think that this is just a cultural thing. I don't think it's let's point the finger at the parents, although, you know, sometimes it could absolutely be that. But I'd say just culturally, this is what we were taught to do. Like, this is what we were taught to be good, and, you know, entails taking care of all this other stuff. So I think,
well, and you touched on it though. Like, I do think that, because I know I've talked with my therapist about this, about like the example that was set in my house of like who did what, you know, like we grow up in that environment of who did what. And I think what happens in my house is the kids come to me because, as you know, Drew's jobs have been so time demanding. He's not been home. I've been the one. And so they don't even know, like, even at the point where I'll be like, oh, Max called me from school. And he's like, oh, he didn't call me. I'm like, why is he calling, you know? And I said, well, because I'm the person, like and I have to remind them sometimes, say, check with dad. Like, he's right there. I don't need, you know, but that's what I saw in my house too. My mom was the one he went to. My dad was at work. He was running a company, like, because that was situationally what it was. But that's what, like you said, I take. And I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And just humans model behavior, you know,
right.
Like, we learn how to be, and that's what we learned, because that's what we saw. And that's how everybody has kind of come up with this. You know, I think it's very rare that women not get that message. I haven't personally, everyone I've talked to over the last, you know, 3 decades, I haven't talked to one woman where that was the case. Like, no, that's really my experience. Like, not one, right? So I'd say it's pretty universal, you know? And looking at that, I think, is really where a lot of the issues come into play for like why we're choosing certain self-soothing behaviors, you know? And if we don't recognize that we are lacking in our emotional boundaries, like, hey, not time to come to me for this. Like, no, you know, mama's not available, right? Like, if there's not an emotional boundary, which could be boundaries around our time and our time management, right? If there's not love and support for ourselves because we were taught we come last, right? Then this behavior is going to continue, and it will continue to elude why we do this if we don't look at that deeper reason, right? So how do we reprogram giving ourselves the love and support that we need, right? That becomes the obvious question. Like, all right, you sold me. I'm on board.
Right. Now, what do we do?
Big enough, right? So how do we fix it? Well, to go back and look at what you do and why you do it and who said what and where were those moments where you were lacking the love and support you needed, and then adopted, like, obviously smartly adopted a strategy to deal with the fact that, okay, I gotta put everyone else first, right? We go back and figure out when we made that strategy and reprogram that strategy. So it does take time to kind of peel back the layers. And, you know, a lot of people, including myself, my memory's kind of hazy on some of these. Like, when did that happen? I don't remember exactly, you know, there's a lot of that. And you don't have to remember exactly. That's the good news. You don't have to go back and be like, oh, there's this really traumatic event and let's go. You know, you don't have to revisit that stuff. You can just have kind of an idea of about how old you were, go back and talk to that part of you that came up with the strategy of let's put everyone else first, because that's what I was told it meant to be a good person. right? So you just kind of go back and you examine and you give yourself the permission to put yourself first. You give yourself the permission and you talk to what they call in psychology, they call it an aspect of yourself, which is like an echo of you at a certain age. And it doesn't have to be exact. You just want to picture kind of this amalgam of who you were and who was around you and kind of the situation that you were in, and go back and kind of talk to yourself like, okay, let's go back and talk to little Kate and let's see, you know, who was saying what and what did I do to respond? And then as now the authority of your life, you go back and you get to talk to yourself, which is still in there, and reprogram that strategy, letting that version of you know, I'm here for you. I am now the authority. They aren't. I am. And your life's awesome. And let me tell you how great it is and why you should listen to me as the older you, right? And I will always be here for you. That's what it boils down to. And when you think of your, you know, younger self, and you look at like, okay, let's look at one time. It does help to just pick an example. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, let's pick an example of when you remember like, oh yeah, I was told to, you know, be nice. Don't say that. That's not nice, right? Go hug, you know, go hug so-and-so because they gave you a
Shut
present.
up and be
Whatever.
invisible.
What was that?
Shut up and be invisible.
Shut up and be
is
invisible.
What comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Or you just need to do this because I need you to do it. Like, I mean, my sister and I were just talking about this, that we were the ones who did it all and my brother didn't do anything. It was always, we were the ones who, because we were the girls did it.
We're expected to do something and we're conditioned to do it because that's what the good girls do.
And because my mom and dad were at work, when we came home, we did it, but he would come home and leave.
Yeah. So you had to either do something or you had to be a certain way, like Andre, you know, be quiet, be invisible, because that's what I need from you right now. So putting other needs before your own, right? We're all kind of taught that. And so when we're taught that, some part of you still needs, still deserves. And we're going into the self-soothing thing as a way to, you know, help that part of us feel loved.
Could some of it also be like avoiding, like, because I was the middle. And so they always thought that I was the easy one because I never spoke up because I didn't like the conflict. I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't like the conflict. So I just shut because that's why, because I didn't want to get in trouble. So I was always considered the easy one that could do it because I never complained and I just kind of went along. And before I used to always think, oh, it's just because I'm easygoing and it didn't really bother me. And some things didn't, like some things I could care less, like fine. But I realize now, like, yeah, things did bother me and it wasn't, I just didn't want to fight about it. I didn't want to get in trouble because I also didn't like the feeling of that. Like, so I would just avoid having to feel that. So maybe that's where some of this like food comfort is to avoid, you know, feeling. And maybe that's why I don't take the time, like, because I was ingrained to not speak up and say, hey, I need this because I'm supposed to be the easy one.
Yeah. I mean, as a fellow middle child, I completely understand that feeling. And, you know, it's another version of, oh, show me that you're easy. So it's easier on me. As a parent, it is easier if you can convince yourself that your kid doesn't need as much attention. But guess what? Just because you don't need as much attention doesn't mean you don't deserve as much attention.
Right. Good point.
And that part of you knows it. That part of you knows you deserve that love and attention. And you were trying to be helpful by not asking for it, by not needing it. Right. That's all, you know, because part of you deserves it. So that whole inner child thing is that part of us, I believe, that is just that pure, like, needs love, needs comfort. It's natural, it's human, and it will come out and make our behavior a certain way. It just will, until that inner child is comforted. And it doesn't have to be comforted with food, because that's what a lot of us do, and it's not working.
Mhm.
Right? It's
Right.
not. That inner child needs to be comforted with love, support, and acknowledgement. That's what needs to happen. Right? And are there steps to do that? Absolutely. But, there's only so much we can do in one little workshop. So this, today, this was about, let's uncover some stuff. Right? That's all it
Mhm.
is. We're just uncovering some things. And when I start thinking about this stuff and what I do and why I do it, things will pop up. They'll just pop up when you don't realize. Nothing will all come to the surface at once. Like, that's just not possible. Right? We have so many experiences in life. So you'll have little, like, glimmers of like, oh, that was a good thing to happen. And you'll have little flashbacks of like, ooh, that was something that was rough. That was rough on me. I deserve better than that, or I could have done better than what I did. Right? We all have that. So looking at the connections, digging deeper than, oh yeah, I'm trying to do stress management, and I'm trying to do time management, and looking deeper as to, like, okay, why do I lack those skills? Right? Why?
Mhm.
Obviously I need it, but why do I lack those? Right? That goes deeper. That goes back. Because I think when we go just to the action step, it just doesn't last. It's not transformational, like when you figure out why you do things.
It's almost like functional behavior management, like functional medicine, like to get down to the why versus just the band-aid on the surface on top.
Yeah. And I love functional medicine. I love my
Mhm.
functional medicine doctor, but it takes a lot more time to do that kind
Mhm.
of stuff, because they're looking at so many variables.
Mhm.
And it really does take that, but it's really expensive, takes a lot of time, right?
Mhm.
I love functional medicine. Fantastic. But, not everyone can afford to do all that stuff,
Mhm.
right? If you can, awesome. You got the resources, fantastic, right? But it's not just time, it's not just access, you know. We have emotional kind of limits to how much we can handle with
Yeah.
things. It is money, right? It's a lot of things that are wrapped up into discovering all the stuff, why we do what we do, because it's physical, it's emotional, and mental. All
Mhm.
those things wrapped up into one, right? So I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys kind of, uncovered a little bit more besides the, like, well, here's the behavior. Let's look a little bit deeper into why that behavior is, right? So do you have any questions as far as, what you've uncovered today? Anything that you want to take a deeper look into?
Oh, then that's like opening up a can of worms, asking that
In a little bit, yeah.
question.
But like I said, it's, what's harder is sitting around and, watching TV and, having the snacks that you want, or avoiding the hard work. Is that harder? Or is not living up to your potential and what you really want out of your life harder? Right? Is dying
Mhm.
with regret harder?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, and I liked what you said about looking at our physical environment and what you're doing. I like where you said get the physical cues to shift it, because I know we talked about the tapping, so to do that part of a
Yeah.
thing, but it's not always what comes in the forefront of your mind. So like to have more like instant, like the alarm set and or the reminders in the phone, or like even thinking of me, like when I come from work, instead of going into that little room where I drop my school stuff, the gym is right next door. I could go
I
in there,
could, but I
like
don't.
I know,
Why
but
is
I don't. I
that?
go in here. So, but like even maybe having that physical cue of like leaving that door open. So I physically have to see it to be like, hey, it looks much nicer in there right now than to pull up in here and if I want to put Schitt's Creek on while I'm working out, I'll go watch it while I'm working out and moving
Right.
versus
Yeah.
sitting in the chair. Yeah.
Top of mind
love
awareness helps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to help you guys too, just so you know, this is something that I've been developing for a while because I do love to uncover this stuff. And I think it does take time because when you dig into something, it releases a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
Like you probably are starting to remember some stuff right now,
Mhm.
right? So we kind of all get triggered, but I think that's what it takes to start unraveling. And it's nice to have a set time knowing that's what I'm going to explore, right? So that's why on Wednesdays, I have at 12 o'clock Central and at 8 p.m. Central, I have these talks, right? So that is what my monthly program is, right? So I want people to be able to come in, go, okay, I'm going to explore a new thing this week. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to keep the door to the gym open right there. And I'm going to do this thing with my phone and my calendar and these alarms because here's what I'm digging into and examining, right? That's what I need, right? So if you want to join that program with me, it's every month, right? So every week you can come to either or, they're always there, right? And we can talk through this stuff. So that's $4.97 a month, just so you guys know, to do this every single week, cover something, right? So if you want to do this on a set schedule, it's here for you.
Okay. Are you still doing your 6-week?
Yeah, I am. And that includes, you know, not only this component, but it's the exercise and the diet and, you know, those more specific, like, here's your plan built to your body and your lifestyle. That too, right? But this component, the coaching, that's the mindset part, this I find is the most potent. Like this
for
helps
sure.
people uncover. Yeah. So this is what I really enjoy. And as I get more people, then I will make more time for this. Right. But right now, like as I'm starting these
What's
programs,
your boundaries?
keeping the boundaries around my time too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I like the midweek thing because I feel like we can examine the week prior, right? But the week's not over yet. So you can still do something.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
that's what
it's
I
not
like
like
it.
Monday, like, oh, let's be good for the week. And then your weekend comes through, you know, it's kind of like sets you up for success at both ends.
Yeah. Because I feel like, you know, Friday or Saturdays, like then we're all kind of like, woohoo, it's weekend, you know, and Mondays we're like gung ho. And that's kind of the same with people when they start like my 6-week challenge, you know, they start all gung ho, but if they didn't talk to me every week, if they didn't have that check-in every week, motivation typically wanes at around 3 weeks. Right. So if we didn't have that constant, like, hey, yeah, you fell down, but this is a great opportunity to examine why. So we can look at why that happens and work around that and give you a new strategy, then people can get like re-energized again. If someone just gets a plan and does it on their own, they just can't get it done because people fall down and then they get discouraged, especially when they don't have a plan to get back up. So that's why these weekly talks, I think, are so important.
What's your price
point? Help during the fall down.
Yeah, for sure. And the accountability too, and the community. Like it's we thrive for community. If we didn't learn anything over being isolated, like you need people.
Yeah, we do.
What's the 6-week price point again?
So the 6-week challenge is $9.97.
Okay.
Just the coaching aspect, this is the $4. Yeah.
But the coaching is involved in the 6-week too.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got both. Anything, Andre, for you? Are you in the shower? Is that where you're muted? She's like, ah, okay. All right. Well, you guys enjoy your Saturday.
So good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for supporting me and getting the book. And I love
I love it.
So
it was
much.
Great. You did a great job.
When I saw that it hit #1, I was just bawling. I was like, oh, this is so touching. It's really great to get so much support and that it resonates with people. Like that's what really, I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what I really feel is so needed, because I'm bridging the health and fitness with psychology, because
100%.
so many people never been to therapy, have some kind of bad connotation. And I'm like, I get it. I'm totally the gateway. I'm like the gateway to help people with examining this one aspect. And if they want to explore more, because then they see how beneficial it is, fantastic. Wouldn't it be great if everyone went to therapy? Awesome. But not everybody wants to, not everybody can. Right. And I think it's just a wonderful, like, let's enter this kind of world that was so helpful for me, and the clients that I have talked to and really worked with this stuff, every single one was like, I never would have gone to therapy if you didn't introduce me to this. Every single one.
Wow.
And so that to me was the most powerful thing I've heard.
Yeah.
I never would have gone to therapy if you didn't introduce me to this kind of thinking. And this is just tip of the iceberg.
That's amazing. Congrats.
Really, thank you. Thank you. It really feels good to be like.
So I have a little bit of input there. I've done a load of therapy.
Yeah.
A load of therapy. But there's no, like you said, there's no connection. And even on this, the amount of therapy I've done, I'm sitting here today thinking I always knew there was a connection food-wise, but I didn't think I'm seeing more connections today than I was seeing before, that I never saw before. And I can't believe at my age that I'm seeing that.
It's kind of maddening, isn't it? Yeah. Like I love that you shared that, Andre, because my experience, it could absolutely be just the therapists that I talked to weren't the right ones. It's possible. I admit that, right? But I've talked to a few, and there wasn't any practical steps, connection, like a measurable.
Well, we don't even when I was really overweight, we never discussed my weight in therapy.
Yeah, it was.
I actually would say, like, I would say it's maybe even that they avoid it.
I think you're right, and
because it's nearly like I know in the veterinary world, like it's very sensitive for anyone to discuss the dogs. Like some vets just won't even discuss the dog if the dog's overweight, because people take it personally. It's like you're telling them they're fat, overweight or something. It's like an area, if they're for an ear infection, yet the dog is clearly seriously overweight, they discuss the ear infection, not the weight, most of them, because it's very sensitive. And I think the same even with therapy, when you're there, for those reasons, the weight is connected, but they don't discuss it.
Yeah.
And I love
Maybe some do. Maybe some do. That was not my experience.
Yes, and some, I will say some vets do, but I would say the majority avoid it.
But here's, I think, the crucial thing too, Andre, is that the difference is they don't have a fitness and nutrition background.
Oh yeah, right? Barely. Yeah,
they don't have it.
It's yes, there's a huge missing factor.
Yeah. And that is exactly why I wrote this. That is totally why I wrote this. Because I'm like, here's where we start. And then you also need nutrition and exercise that supports your body and your mentality. You need those things.
I've even like I've had both sides at the same time, but there's something missing with the bridge to connect the two.
There's nothing cohesive. Absolutely. Yeah. That was,
it's like
totally
you have this, you have this over here and you have that over there. And if you're lucky, everything will streamline together. And sometimes it does, but then when it breaks down because of something happening in one aspect of those areas that was supporting you, you kind of, it just crumbles. The foundation isn't there. Am I explaining myself right?
No,
Absolutely.
completely. Yeah. I was, because I was thinking the same thing before you said the bridge. I'm like, there, because even doctors, they are afraid to talk nutrition because they don't have the knowledge. They take one nutrition class in all of their med school. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, I do work with a therapist now, but I've specifically said to her I need to work on disordered eating, but we've dug up a bunch of like inner child stuff just from other things with me. But we have yet, even though we've talked about the disordered eating, we talked about that, there still hasn't been a connection there. Even, you know, I've talked about them both isolated separately, but not to where they would have connected. So that's why I think this is so powerful too. And that's what I loved about that. You talked about all this and then you threw in the exercise and nutrition at the end. It wasn't like, hey, here. No, because you could sit there and I could follow a meal plan forever. And if I didn't deal with the real reason why that behavior is happening, then it's not. I mean, I just had this conversation with Drew the other day. Like, no, I need, like, I could sit there. Sure, I could sit here and I could plan and I could do, but I got to figure out why that's what I do. Like, I got to get to the root of why and shift that versus all the other stuff.
Yeah. And I think one important thing to point out here is that scope of practice is a real issue. And everyone is afraid of getting sued, right? So everyone's trying to cover their ass. And I get it. Like, if you don't have expertise in this area, you don't want to talk about that area. If you don't have expertise in this, you don't want to do that. But here's the thing. That leaves everybody on their own to try and make the connections that really should all be talking to each other. Like, all of these things should be done at the same time with consideration to what you're doing in all these areas. So the fact that we're not doing that just as a society and the culture, I think really sets people back. And so that was kind of my goal, was to get all of this together. Now, you know, someone might come after me going, hey, you can't heal childhood trauma. I'm like, I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to heal all the childhood trauma. I'm just trying to get people aware of what they're doing and why they're doing it in regard to their weight gain. And if they start thinking about the fact that this is connected to childhood trauma,
great.
I would love for them to go to therapy, right? And so that is where, you know I've had a little pushback on that already, but I'm like, this is important and it does need to be connected. And no one is talking about all three aspects at one time, and it needs to happen.
Well, or even if, like you said, like, even if, you know, our therapists, if they're worried about scope practice, then make your connection to someone in this world, you know, like, have like your trio of people who see eye to eye and bridge and can work simultaneously together to do it, you know. I mean, in an ideal society, but
And I see Katrina just joined us, and Katrina, I think maybe you thought this started 11. It started an hour ago, just so you know, Katrina. So we're just kind of finishing up right now. But I will make sure you get the replay so you can listen in. But I think that I think you're absolutely right, Kate. Like, we need all of this connection, and it really does everyone a disservice when there's not communication between the specialties.
Agree. I'm experiencing that as we speak, so that's where my frustration lies a lot. But
and I think that's everybody. I mean, who hasn't tried to get down to the bottom of like one physical issue for somebody that they have to deal with, or someone they know, and have been to a bunch of different doctors? Like, it's maddening, right? So it's that part of it where these aspects of our body, where, you know, mental health shouldn't be separate from physical health. It's all your
connected,
body, right? It's all connected. So it's a shame, but at the same time, I get people are trying to specialize in an area. I understand that, but at the same time, we should have all the connections of everything.
Well, and even if they specialize, though, have a partner where you're like, hey, this person thinks the way I do, so if you connect with me, this is the good person to go to for this, or this is the good person, you know.
And I'm, you know, perfectly happy being a resource for people, being like, hey, let's look at all this stuff. This is what's connected. Here's my suggestion. Go to that doctor. Go to that doctor,
Totally.
right? I'm fine with being that hub.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it needs to really help people with, you got to see how all this stuff is connected. Otherwise, you don't see the connections. You're going to die with all this potential inside of you because you never made those connections. It's tragic, right? So, yeah. So I think we're all in agreement. All this stuff needs to be, communicated and uncovered, and it's really important. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you guys, thank you for joining me today. It was lovely to speak to all of you. And again, I will send out some more info with this practice and these coaching programs, so you can have them and you can pick and choose what works best for you. And I'd love to help you uncover more so we can transform these things.
Great.
Right? So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Soon. Okay.
Thanks, Anne.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.